Pretending to go on a business trip due to suspicions of my husband's infidelity, I left the house open only to find him in bed with his mistress in our bedroom. After completely sealing the door shut, I invited the relatives over to show off our new house, and well. My name is Kate, I'm 35 years old. I worked as an interior coordinator. Having been married for 5 years, I met my husband Tom through work. Initially, we would only meet occasionally for work, but Tom always brightened up the surroundings and was kind to everyone. I was drawn to his personality, and gradually, we became closer, realizing our values aligned perfectly, leading us to marriage. Tom, of course, and his parents were extremely kind, rejoicing in our marriage from the bottom of their hearts and treating me like their own daughter ever since. Having barely met his parents before our marriage, I was a bit anxious, but they turned out to be warm and welcoming people, which put my mind at ease. We thought it was important to live near such warm in-laws, to support each other in times of need, and so we decided to move. And now, we've finally purchased the tower apartment we dreamt of. When we got married, we had deep conversations about our values and future plans, agreeing that acquiring our ideal home was most important. Both of us working, we cherished our careers while sharing a common dream, a promise between us. Working as an interior coordinator, my income has been higher than Tom's since the beginning of our marriage, taking on more financial responsibilities. When buying the tower apartment, we didn't compromise in searching for one that met our desires. Focusing on stylish interiors, which exceeded our budget. However, as I climbed the career ladder, I eventually earned twice as much as Tom, deciding to purchase this apartment close to his parents to fulfill our dream. Busy with work, we agreed to save money now and consider having children later, so we don't have kids yet, but we're starting to think about it. The move to our dream tower apartment is scheduled in 2 weeks. Even with busy schedules, we spend evenings preparing for the move. Sharing household chores as a working couple. Though we vowed to tackle everything together at the start of our marriage, Tom has recently stopped helping with housework. Today, too, dishes lay unwashed, trash scattered around. Once again, I come home tired from work later than Tom to clean up. Left in a mess again. I'm tired from work too, I said while tidying up the living room. Tom, can we talk? Is now a good time? Yeah, what's up? Our relationship seems to have changed recently. We used to respect each other so much, right? Yeah, that's true. But why bring this up now? Don't you think your attitude has changed recently? We're supposed to support each other as a working couple. I haven't changed. It's just that I've gotten a bit busier. I get that you're busy, but even so, I feel like the care for our home and our time together is fading. That's an exaggeration. I haven't changed. We just bought our dream tower apartment, so we're gonna need to cooperate more, right? We have to work together to pay off the mortgage from now on. Yeah, you're right. The next day, tired, I drop off my work bag and see the laundry. Tom, who had the day off, is sitting on the couch watching TV. Tom, you promised you'd hang the laundry. It's already evening. Sorry. Got a bit busy. I'm tired from work every day too. I wish you'd help share the chores a bit. Okay, got it. I'll do it later. Time passes, and while I'm preparing dinner in the kitchen, I notice the laundry still hasn't been hung. Tom, the laundry's still not done. It's almost night, you know? Forgot about that. Got a bit tired. Can it wait till tomorrow? I understand being tired, but I'm the same. We need to help each other out. Yeah. But I really want to rest today. I'll do it tomorrow. We talked about sharing household chores since we're both working, remember? It's fine. You've been doing it, Kate. If you don't help, I'm busy with work too. All right. Let's end this conversation. That's how you always escape. Another usual morning. I sip my coffee, discussing today's schedule with Tom. I've got back-to-back meetings today. Looks like I'll be home late. What about you? Actually, I've quit my job. What? Why? All of a sudden? What's the reason? Just didn't feel like doing it anymore. But what about our finances? Our future plans? We'll figure something out. Kate's working too. We decided to support each other by both working. I know, but I was at my limit with the stress from work. I have stress too, but I'm trying to get through it without running away. And you should have talked to me before quitting your job. Well, I had already decided, and saying it wouldn't have changed my mind, right? I know. I'll look for another job. It's not as serious as Kate thinks. We'll figure it out. We can't just figure it out. We have a mortgage to pay. Find a job quickly, okay? All right. Lately, my husband's become more selfish. Can marriage really change someone so much after 5 years? Another late night. I'm waiting in the living room. The clock already points past midnight, but Tom is still not home. The sound of the door unlocking. You're finally back. I was worried. Where have you been this late? Sorry. Just out drinking with some friends. We're about to move. We need to get things ready. Haven't you been coming home late more often? It's just a breather. Don't pry so much. How's the job hunt? Any prospects? Stop nagging. I'm stressed too. I notice Tom's phone on the table. The screen lights up. Today was fun. A message pops up, adorned with a heart. And there's Tom, absorbed in his phone again. Seems like he's exchanging messages. With a woman. Messaging again at this hour. It's none of your business. Don't snoop through my private stuff. Enough. I'm going to sleep. Tom's nights out, his late returns, and his irritable reactions. Something's definitely off. And then, the day of the move came. In a flurry, we somehow managed to move. And so, we've moved into our long-awaited tower apartment. For this move, we also swapped out furniture for pieces that fit the room better, but my absolute favorite is this big queen-sized bed. I was particular about the sheets and duvet cover too. That day, I ended up falling asleep on the couch while tidying up things here and there. The next day, I was supposed to be on a business trip. I really can't miss this trip. Sorry, it's right after we moved. Oh. I'm gonna be job hunting all day today anyway, won't be back till late. Good luck with the job search. Well, I'm heading out now. Okay, take care. In reality, there was no business trip. I took a day off. And the purpose was to investigate Tom's actions. Pretending to go on a trip, I left the house and immediately started up the pet camera app from the cafe next door. I left 2 cameras disguised as part of the interior in the living room and bedroom. The installed cameras allowed me to watch what was happening at home through my phone. After a while, I heard a woman's voice, and Tom letting her into the living room. Incredible, the real thing is just as amazing as the show apartment. I really want to live here. Who's this woman? She works at the model house. She guided us when we visited the tower apartment. Let's kick him out and live here together, just the 2 of us. When will you do it? Soon enough. Just wait a bit. Okay. Such conversations were heard. So this is the real Tom. Just as I thought. Making a fool of me? Unforgivable. Meanwhile, the 2 seemed to have gone into the bedroom. Tom's affair partner, Susan, was the employee who guided us at the model house. Tom and Susan's relationship started on the day he visited the apartment for viewing. Tom, taking a liking to Susan, kept talking to her. Despite sensing my gaze, Susan continued with the tour. Tom kept visiting, and gradually their relationship became personal. I switched the pet camera to the bedroom. What I saw from there was like a scene from hell. Forced to watch everything, I felt sick to my stomach. But I recorded every bit of it. This is irrefutable evidence. Modern pet cameras are really well made and useful. No escaping now. Time to go. I head home and enter the room. Clothes and underwear are strewn about the living room. I ignore them and head straight for the bedroom. Then, I open the door with a click. Tom, what are you doing while I'm away? Kate. You said you were job hunting all day today, didn't you? Is this what you call job hunting? What are you doing in my house taking advantage of my absence? This is my house. If you have a problem, we can divorce right now. What is this man talking about? Fine. Just make sure you don't regret it later. Huh? What are you talking about, huh? Get out, now. I left the room. Getting angry won't change anything. But I can't let those two get away with this. That's it. I came up with an idea. I won't let them get away. I grab a toolbox and head back to the bedroom. They don't seem to notice me standing in front of the room. It seems they've started again. What's with them? But now's my chance. They seem completely unaware of my presence or any noise outside. I nailed the door shut, completely sealing it. Then, I decide to contact my in-laws. It's necessary for Tom's parents to know about his actions. So, I call my mother-in-law. Mom, we successfully moved in yesterday. Could you and Dad please come over soon? I'd like to show you our new place. Oh, that's wonderful. And, there's a significant announcement to make, so please hurry. What kind of announcement? You'll understand once you're here. All right. We'll head over right away. I'll meet you in the lobby, so please be careful on your way. It's just a stone's throw from my in-laws' house to this tower apartment, not even 10 minutes away. I greet them in the tower apartment's lobby. Dad, Mom, welcome and thank you for coming. What a lovely apartment. Thanks for inviting us. I'm excited to see what the new place looks like. We weren't sure how to get in, so it's good you came down. Now, what's this big announcement? You'll see once we get to the room. Under my guidance, we take the elevator up to our apartment. Please, this way. Thank you. We'll make ourselves at home. We entered. The shiny new entrance has flashy women's shoes placed around. Huh? Is someone here? Do you have friends over? No, Dad, Mom, please, come in. Oh, is that so? Well then, we'll come in. It seems my in-laws have also noticed the odd atmosphere. And as I lead them into the living room, they come face to face with the scattered clothing. What is this? What's going on? What happened? Dad, Mom, the reason I asked you two to come today is that there's something you need to know about Tom's actions. What's happening? Tom has been bringing his mistress into our home, taking advantage of the fact that I was supposed to be on a business trip. Tom is currently unemployed, and he said he was going to spend today job hunting. Tom is unemployed? Yes, he quit his job suddenly 2 weeks ago. I had no idea. Tom. I'm so sorry, Kate. Because of Tom's strange behavior, I lied about being on a business trip and have been keeping an eye on things. I showed them the pet camera disguised as decor in the living room. This is a camera? Yes, you can check the camera's footage through a smartphone app. I launched the smartphone app and show my in-laws the footage being recorded by the bedroom camera. Their own son and an unknown woman in an indecent state are displayed. Oh, what on earth? I can't believe this. My mother-in-law, seeing her son and his lover in such an unwelcome state, cries out in disdain. With my father-in-law shaking in anger, he says, "That guy. I'll never forgive him. Having an affair while Kate is here. And to bring his mistress to the new house we just moved into yesterday. It's unthinkable for my father-in-law, who is usually calm and kind, to imagine his son having an affair." Now, seemingly on the verge of exploding, he asks, "Kate, is this footage live?" "Yes, right now, in the bedroom. Can you take us to the bedroom? Yes, of course. I lead my in-laws to the front of the bedroom door. Tom and Susan start panicking inside, possibly noticing because of my mother-in-law's shout. Tom, did you hear that? Is someone here? Eh? That can't be. Kate left. I'll go check. As Tom tries to open the room's door, he finds it won't budge. Huh? Why won't it open? Is it broken? He tries to open the door several times, but it doesn't open. I wonder why. If it comes to it, I'll just have to force it. Tom tried to force the door open, but it wouldn't budge at all. Why? Is it locked from the outside? Eh? What's going on? Why won't it open? Since I nailed it shut from the outside, it's no wonder the door won't open from the inside. Then, realizing something was amiss, Tom and Susan. We need to get dressed. The living room. Indeed, their underwear is strewn all over the living room. And there are no clothes or anything to change into in the bedroom. What do we do? That's when my father-in-law knocks on the door. Knock, knock. Tom, you're in there, aren't you? With your mistress? Dad. What are you doing? Well. I can't forgive you for doing something like this. They try to escape to the balcony and open the window, but this is the 30th floor of a tower apartment. There's no way down. And both of them are completely naked. In a panic, they wrap themselves in lace curtains and hide on the balcony. Oh dear! Their foolish attempt to hide is clearly visible through the pet camera. I can't believe I married someone like this. It's almost laughable at this point. Then, the moment of truth arrives. I remove the nails and unlock the door. Entering the bedroom with my in-laws. Tom and Susan are nowhere to be seen. Huh? Tom's not here? However, we know they're hiding on the balcony. We can just barely see Tom and Susan trying to hide, but I pretend not to notice and say, the balcony door's been left unlocked. How careless, and then I lock it. Really? If you don't lock the door properly, it's careless. With that, we all left the bedroom. Did they lock us out? What on earth? Open up! I'm sorry. Please open the door. The scene of Tom and Susan wrapped in just a lace curtain, screaming from the 30th floor balcony of the tower apartment. It would surely shock the neighbors. How ridiculous. You two can reflect out there for a while. After leaving them on the balcony for some time, I threw their clothes into the room and unlocked the balcony door. Naturally, my in-laws were furious. Or rather, they were beyond appalled. Thank goodness. Why would you do such a thing? Aren't you ashamed? There's no one else who has been as good to us as Kate. I'm so sorry for my stupid son's behavior. Mom, please don't apologize. This is an issue between Tom and me. As Susan hastily tries to change and leave, I tell her, you stay right here too. Then I play the recording of the conversation they had in the living room for everyone to hear. Truly, beyond redemption. Tom, you were planning to kick me out and live here with her, weren't you? Tom, now defiant, says, yeah, this house is mine, after all. All right, let's divorce then. And of course, I'll be seeking alimony from both of you, so be prepared for that. How he could misunderstand that this house would be his. And how an unemployed Tom would manage to pay is beyond me. I left the new apartment with a heavy sigh. There was sadness, of course, but more than that, I was resolved to do what needs to be done. I never imagined my life built up to this point would end in such a manner. However, it was time to look forward. To officially end my relationship with Tom, and for my own sake too. The next day, I immediately took action. First, I began by looking for a trustworthy lawyer. After researching on the internet, I found a law firm with a good reputation and quickly made an appointment for a consultation. On the day of the consultation, I visited the law office, nervous but explained everything calmly. Kate, thank you for coming today. What can I assist you with? The lawyer asked in a calm tone. I took a deep breath before starting. My husband brought his mistress into our house on a day he thought I was away on a business trip. But the trip was a lie. I was actually monitoring his suspicious behavior. And I recorded the entirety of their affair with a pet camera. I took out my smartphone and presented the recorded video and audio as evidence. The lawyer watched the footage intently. After listening to Tom and his mistress's conversation, he said quietly, "These are very strong pieces of evidence. Please tell me about the impact on the household finances since Tom quit his job." Yes, after my husband became unemployed, I've been supporting all our household expenses, including the down payment for the tower apartment. If the affair is as clear as this, claiming alimony is entirely possible. Additionally, I would like to discuss the tower apartment's mortgage. On that matter, during the divorce proceedings, we can address the mortgage responsibility as well. Tom will have legal obligations, so we will negotiate firmly on that part. The time I spent with Tom, the love, and the dreams encapsulated in our new home, all turned into a place of betrayal in an instant. A home should be a place of comfort, but for me, that apartment had become a source of deep emotional pain. I won't live in that house anymore. But we've just moved in, and there's hardly any of the mortgage paid off. Since my husband became unemployed, I've been making all the payments. We can demand Tom to take responsibility for the mortgage payments in addition to alimony. However, whether an unemployed him has the capacity to pay now or in the foreseeable future. I understand. But I can't spend another day in that house. And given the situation he has caused, he must take responsibility for it. The lawyer accepted my request, incorporating full payment of the mortgage by Tom and appropriate alimony payments into the divorce settlement. Later, accompanied by the lawyer, I went back to the new tower apartment. My concerned in-laws came along for support. How audacious Tom and Susan were, still living in the tower apartment. The lawyer then calmly read out the terms of the divorce settlement. While they had no choice but to accept the alimony terms, this much? We can't pay all of this. That's when I showed them the video recorded by the pet camera, with audio included. Here, we have solid evidence. I pointed out the pet camera disguised as an interior decor piece. I had one in the living room and one in the bedroom. That's an invasion of privacy. Privacy? That's rich coming from you. This house is mine. It's my right to place cameras if I want to. They're there to keep out burglars, though I ended up catching a very different kind of thief. Ugh. Susan was left speechless. Then, in addition to alimony, the lawyer informed Tom that he would also be responsible for repaying the down payment and remaining mortgage payments I had made. This house was almost entirely built according to Kate's wishes. It's unreasonable for me to bear all the costs. I really loved this house filled with my dreams. Then you should bear some of the burden too. My father-in-law glared at Tom. What are you talking about? What did you do in this house filled with Kate's dreams? Moreover, Kate isn't even living here. You invited your mistress into the house and acted inappropriately. Who would want to live in such a house? That's obvious. You need to take full responsibility for the situation you caused. With the support of my in-laws, the divorce negotiations concluded in my favor. The divorce proceedings went ahead with mutual consent. Tom was obligated to repay the remainder of the mortgage and the down payment I had made. I no longer consider you my son. We're cutting ties with you. My in-laws decided to sever ties with Tom. Susan, who had been working as a receptionist at a model house, was implicated by the evidence of her affair with Tom that I had provided. An emergency meeting was called, and Susan was summoned. Do you understand that your actions have significantly damaged the company's reputation? I'm very sorry. Your actions have severely tarnished our reputation. It will take time to restore trust from our clients. Unfortunately, we cannot keep you at the company. You will have to leave. Yes. I never thought it would come to this. The divorce between Tom and me finally settled by mutual agreement, but the affair scandal between a client and an employee that came to light in the process was majorly covered by the company, and of course, Susan was fired. The inappropriate relationship in the tower apartment cost Susan her career. And in the end, she broke up with Tom. He was jobless and still unable to find a job. The burden of the mortgage payments loomed over him. Looks like I have no choice but to sell this apartment. He alternated between looking at the mortgage statement and the tower apartment sales advertisement. It might sell for a high price. That could actually turn into a profit. Then he went to negotiate the sale with a real estate agent. The charm of a new building is significant, but its value begins to depreciate as soon as you move in. Trying to reduce the loan burden by selling the tower apartment, he was overwhelmed by the size of the remaining debt. Even letting go of it, the remaining mortgage balance was still a heavy load. Why is the mortgage the only thing remaining? Still, the mortgage for the tower apartment was too high to afford, so he had no choice. Kate was earning that much. I didn't know. It was too late when he realized how grateful he should have been. Tom had no choice but to start life in a cheap rental apartment. My days after the divorce began with self-recovery. On a quiet morning, I was walking in my usual park. In nature, I slowly began to face myself and feel inner healing. One day, I happened to meet Ken at a photography store where we shared a hobby. The two of us easily engaged in conversation through our DSLR cameras. Photography is wonderful because it preserves moments forever. Yes, it's truly art that transcends time. Over time, we shared many moments through photography, gradually closing the distance between our hearts. Ken approached my past wounds with kindness and understanding. I found myself being drawn to such a caring Ken. Even after divorcing Tom, I continued to have a good relationship with his parents. They cared for me and we kept in regular contact, deepening our bond even more than before. They still treat me like their own daughter to this day. Today, I plan to introduce my fiancé, Ken, to my parents. I never imagined days like this would come, not so long ago. Kate, spending peaceful times like this with you is the greatest happiness for me. My career is going well. Ken has become a popular photographer. In fact, we have purchased a new tower apartment. It ended up being even more expensive than the previous tower apartment, but it's a wonderful apartment that includes everything Ken and I wanted. I go to the lobby to meet Tom's parents. Hello, Kate. Your new painting is really lovely. Kate, it's good to see you well. Thank you for coming. We then went up to the apartment together in the elevator. Excuse us. Oh, hello there. Nice to meet you, I'm Ken. Oh, is that so? Dad, Mom, this is my fiancé. I promise to make Kate happy, so please rest assured. He seems like a kind and wonderful person. Kate, you're lucky. Please take care of her. We're like Kate's parents, so feel free to rely on us anytime. Kate, congratulations truly. I'm really happy for you. Be happy. Tom's parents felt responsible for the pain I suffered because of Tom, but seeing me find a wonderful partner and looking happy gave them peace of mind. Ken is very kind and always puts me first. And as a working couple, we share all the household chores. Ken, who enjoys cooking, prepares delicious meals every day. Meeting Ken has filled my days with happiness. I am very happy now. I truly believe that marriage is wonderful. My name is Natalie Thompson, and I'm 46 years old. I'm a married working mom, 16 years into marriage. I live with my husband, our 15-year-old daughter Lisa, and my in-laws, making us a family of 5. We might seem like a happy family, but an event led to our dispersion. What is this? What are you trying to do? The trigger was a divorce paper that my husband Michael presented to me when he came home. Michael, who handed me the filled-out divorce form, dropped a bombshell. My mistress is pregnant. I want to marry her, so I want a divorce from you.
Are you kidding?
This is no joke. I met her about a year ago, and now she's pregnant with my child. She's just 21 and a part-time employee. It would be cruel to make her have the baby alone, wouldn't it? So, I'm gonna take responsibility and marry her. You just need to sign this divorce paper and submit it to the city hall.
Just submit it to the city hall. You do realize you're married, right?
I know, that's why I brought the divorce paper. It's not about that. I have no clue what you're trying to say.
What about Lisa? Do you not care about her at all?
I never said I don't care. But Lisa is already 15. She's not at an age where she'll miss having a dad around. Besides, she's been quite distant lately. Maybe it's her rebellious phase, but she avoids me and barely talks. Maybe it's better for her if I'm not around. I'll give you Lisa's custody.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious. I'm planning to divorce you as soon as possible. I won't change my mind. My husband said this without any remorse. At that moment, I lost all affection for him and accepted the divorce. However, he then said something even more unbelievable. Then, even after we divorce, I'll need you to take care of my parents.
What did you say?
I mean, I'm entrusting the care of my parents to you. 5 years ago, when my father-in-law hurt his back, we started living with my in-laws. Initially, it was agreed that I would take care of them, but once we started living together, Michael hardly contributed to their care, leaving everything to me. Moreover, my in-laws said, "Our son is busy with work, so you should do it. Even though you work, it's not like a woman's job is that significant." That's what he had the nerve to say. Yet, despite that, my husband Michael says I should take care of them even after we divorce. I naturally opposed this fiercely.
No joke. Why should I take care of your parents after we get divorced?
Why can you only say such cold things? Family is still family, even after divorce. Haven't you received a lot of help from my parents over the years? Don't you think about repaying that kindness? What are you talking about? It makes no sense. Perhaps hearing our conversation, my in-laws came into the living room from another room.
Mother-in-law, please listen.
I heard the conversation. There's going to be a child, right? Then, it can't be helped. Natalie will take care of us, so Michael, you stay by your new wife and child's side.
What?
We'll be fine as long as Natalie and Lisa are here to look after us, right? We just need you to show us the child's face from time to time.
Wait, are you serious?
What's wrong, Natalie?
Why are you assuming it's natural for us to take care of you even after the divorce?
Well, aren't we family? Helping each other is what families do, right?
Family? He's betraying our family, cheating with a younger woman, and you talk about family?
My in-laws didn't seem to understand what I was saying at all. Ever since we got married, they've always sided with my husband. My opinion hardly mattered. That's when it happened.
I'm home.
Our daughter Lisa, who had been at a study session, returned home. Entering the living room, she seemed surprised by the odd atmosphere. What's going on? Did something happen? Well, your dad and I are going to get divorced.
What?
Your dad is going to marry a new woman. She's pregnant with his child. So he has to take responsibility.
Wait, what are you saying? Are you serious?
OWEL, like mother, like daughter. You have the exact same reaction as your mom. I'm sorry, but I don't love your mom anymore. It might be hard without me, but I hope you can forgive me.
Forgive you? I don't understand. What's going to happen now?
It's nothing complicated. You just need to stay here with your mom and take care of grandma and grandpa, just like before.
Wait, you're getting a divorce, right? So why should mom and I take care of the two of you?
I'm a man, and I have no clue about caregiving. It's better if you and mom handle it. Grandpa and grandma will be happier that way. Is that okay with you, mom?
I am.
Thank you so much for helping without expecting anything in return. We're relieved to have you and Lisa around. Michael needs to protect his new wife and child, so don't worry about us and just live happily. In front of our daughter, who was rightfully questioning, they spoke as if it was all settled. However, they didn't know that their world would turn upside down with my next statement.
As I said before, I have no intention of taking care of you too. And I certainly won't make Lisa do it either.
Why are you being so stubborn? Yes, Lisa is our granddaughter, right? What's wrong with a granddaughter taking care of her grandparents? Even if you're divorced, a granddaughter is still a granddaughter. And you, as her mother, have a duty to take care of us. Isn't it too cold to say that it's over just because of the divorce?
Why should I take care of Michael's parents, who will be strangers to me after the divorce?
That's because
you seem to be under some misconception. If we're getting divorced, you two will naturally have to move out of this house. What? Why do we have to leave this house?
This house was bought by our son, right? Natalie, you have no right to kick us out.
Yes, I do. Because this house is mine, I bought it.
What? Right, dear? That's, well.
What do you mean? Isn't this the house you bought? You said you bought a big house for the family when you got promoted.
That was all a lie. A lie. Do you in-laws even know how much he earns?
Hey, you don't have to go that far.
If I hadn't spoken up, we wouldn't be in this situation. We've come this far, it's better to tell everything. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Simply put, he earns less than I do. He doesn't make enough to afford such a large house.
What?
His company is a subcontractor for the company I work for. Didn't I tell you? We met through work. He came to sell something to my office, and I was drawn to his dedication. But I never imagined that, 16 years into our marriage, he'd come and tell me he wants a divorce because he got a younger woman pregnant.
What? Is that story true?
Well, that's. I'll add that since he moved in, he hasn't contributed to the household expenses at all. From utilities to groceries, I've been paying for everything, including your living expenses. That can't be.
We were giving our son part of our pension as living expenses, weren't we? Weren't you getting that from your son? Didn't I tell you? I never received any money from him for living expenses.
Then where did our pensions go?
Who knows? Maybe he's been supporting his mistress with it?
What?
The nerve of him to ask me to keep looking after you two after the divorce, not because he's staying in the house he bought, but in the house I bought with my earnings. How can he say that with a straight face?
After hearing my story, the three of them fell silent. After thinking for a bit, my father-in-law asked my husband, "Why did you lie about buying the house when it was Natalie who bought it? You told us you bought it for the family, that you were providing for us. Yes, you said since it's your house, there's no need to hold back. We thought that's why you invited us to live with you." Well, Hey, you're being asked a question. Can't answer for yourself? Then let me. It seems he felt inferior because he earns less than his wife. He was too embarrassed, so he begged me to pretend he bought the house. There's no rule that men have to earn more than women, or that the breadwinner has to be the man. But I can somewhat understand his desire. So, as he wished, I kept it secret that I bought the house, and we've been pretending it's his. He must have forgotten about it since he asked me to take care of his parents in this house. And the unknowing in-laws believed their son's words. That's the situation. Even now, do you still expect me to take care of you? That's.
I'll say it again, this is my house that I bought. I have the right to decide who lives here. I've been patient until now, but from today, this house is only for Lisa and me. So, the three of you, please pack your things and leave my house immediately.
I was surprised myself at how fluently the words came out. I guess all my pent-up feelings had exploded. Then, the in-laws suddenly prostrated before me. They must have panicked realizing they were being kicked out.
We had no idea it would come to this. We've caused so much trouble, and we're truly sorry. But if Natalie kicks us out, we have nowhere to go. Our parents are gone, and we have no family home to return to. Our siblings live far in the countryside. With my bad leg, I can't live in such a remote place. Please, let us stay here. I'm so sorry for not understanding Natalie's feelings and pushing everything onto her. I must have been the worst mother-in-law. But now that I know the situation, I'll change my heart and help Natalie. I'll do whatever you ask, just let us stay here. I don't want to be separated from Lisa.
The two of them were sobbing and apologizing to me. How absurd. They weren't blaming my husband, the root cause of this mess, but still trying to rely on me. They just don't get it. Just as I was about to speak up, Lisa interjected.
Grandpa, Grandma, you really don't get it, do you? After hearing everything, why are you still trying to get Mom to take care of you? Normally, you'd be blaming Dad for causing this, right? A child shouldn't be speaking like that. Go to your room. Why should I? You were planning to make me help with taking care of you, right? Then I'm involved. Saying that it's a grandchild's job to look after grandparents, but now telling me to keep out because I'm just a child? Can you stop flipping between treating me as an adult or a child based on what suits you? How cheeky. If you have nowhere to go, why not go to Dad's place? After the divorce, he's going to live with his mistress, right? If you have nowhere to go, you should go there. You both said it, right? It's the job of grandchildren and daughters-in-law to take care of you. Mom won't be a daughter-in-law anymore, so why not rely on the new one? I'm still a grandchild even if my parents are divorced, but there's going to be a new grandchild on that side, so no problem, right?
Lisa's rebuttal left them speechless. The in-laws looked at each other in surprise. However, my husband, thinking he'd have to take in his parents, was furious at Lisa's words.
What are you talking about? How did this conversation even get here? I need to protect my new wife and child. I don't have time to care for Mom and Dad too.
But you told me not to say cold things. A son connected by blood saying such things?
That's not what I mean. It's just impossible right now.
If it'll be okay later, then living together now doesn't make a difference. Exactly. Plus, if a baby is coming, it's better to have more people around. It could be a win-win situation. Then, after hearing our conversation, the in-laws seemed to change their minds, suddenly saying,
Actually, that might be a better idea. What? Are you seriously considering coming? It's unrealistic to rely on Natalie forever. If there's a new wife, it would be better to depend on her. And thinking about it, Natalie's right. If a child is coming, more hands are needed. Especially since you'll be working hard for your family, right? Then it's better if she and we take care of the child. We have to help out. Hey, wait a minute, both of you.
The three of them, leaving us behind, had a mini-family argument. In the end, it seemed my husband gave in and decided to take his parents to his mistress's house. The in-laws, having secured a new place to rely on, happily packed their bags and left with my deeply sighing husband. However, unbelievably, within 3 hours, the trio returned.
What's the meaning of this? Returning home less than 3 hours after you left?
Well, actually. My husband, with a pale face, responded to my inquiry. She kicked us out.
What? That's right, she kicked us out.
After leaving our house, he took his parents to his mistress's place. I heard about your situation from your son. You've been through a lot. But don't worry anymore. We're here to help.
Wait, what do you mean?
Sorry for showing up unannounced. It's a long story, but for now, can we come in?
I can't let you in, can I?
What?
Why should I let you in?
But we're going to get married.
Married?
I've been pretending not to know, but you're pregnant with my child, aren't you? That's why I handed the divorce papers to my wife and left the house.
What have you been saying?
I saw it, the used pregnancy test, in your bathroom. I checked online, and if both lines are there, it means you're pregnant. You must have left it there to tell me later, right? I'm sorry for looking without permission. But if you leave something like that out in the open, I'll notice it. You've been turning down meals recently because you weren't feeling well, right? That's what's going on, isn't it? You don't have to hide anything anymore. I want you to feel safe to have my child now that we'll be here for you. Then she said to him,
Are you an idiot? Yes, I'm pregnant, but this child isn't yours.
It's not my child. What are you saying? Then whose child is it?
It's my boyfriend's, obviously.
Boyfriend. But that's not me.
Do you really think you're my boyfriend? Did you honestly believe that all this time?
But we've been involved for a year since we met.
Of course not. Where did we meet, remember?
That's right, we met through a sugar daddy app, but that was just at the beginning. You gave me your home address, and we went out together many times. We were in a relationship.
That's ridiculous. I never promised to marry you, and we were never officially together. You've misunderstood everything and brought your parents here. What were you thinking?
What? Yes, the woman he thought he was dating was someone he met on a sugar daddy app.
A misunderstanding? I handed my wife the divorce papers and left my 15-year-old daughter to come here. What am I supposed to do now that you're saying this?
That's not my problem, is it? You're the one who misunderstood.
What are you talking about?
That's creepy.
Creepy?
Michael, what is going on? Sugar daddy, what's that? Well, that's...
Oh, let me explain in a way that even your parents can understand. I was just being paid to hang out with him. We're not lovers or anything, so could you please leave?
What? Such a thing.
Don't mess with me. I bought you everything you wanted, and I gave you so much money, only for you to repay me like this.
Repay you like this?
You signed up for the sugar daddy app yourself, right? After all that money you spent, how can you even say such a thing? Isn't that strange? I don't want to be called weird by someone who's doing sugar dating while having a boyfriend. I don't care if you think I'm weird. I was doing sugar dating to save up for my wedding with my boyfriend. I was planning to stop soon anyway. Our relationship was about to end, so this is actually perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
Did you really think a 50-year-old married man with children could seriously get involved with a 21-year-old woman? I thought you were using a sugar daddy app because you understood your place. I never imagined you would leave your family thinking we were in a relationship. It's just pitiful. My condolences. Make sure not to make such creepy misunderstandings next time. Well, if there is a next time.
She seemed to mock him with those words. He got furious at her words.
Enough with making a fool out of me.
Just as he was about to lash out at her. What?
Who are you?
A strong-looking young man appeared from the back of the room and grabbed his hand. This man was her real boyfriend. Immediately she exclaimed.
This man is my stalker. He's mistaken that I'm pregnant with his child and even brought his parents here. When I denied it, he suddenly tried to hit me. Please help me. Old man, don't you dare mess with my wife. You've got some nerve trying to hit her. It's not like that. Listen, don't you ever show your face around us again. If I see you one more time, you won't get off so easily. Geez. Michael, maybe it's best we go home. Yeah, let's go back. Damn it.
And so, the three of them were chased away by the couple and returned to our house.
That damn brat. I won't forgive her. I'll sue her for fraud.
What? Let's discuss what's going to happen next. Right. Even if we need to hire a lawyer, we first have to talk. Saying that, they tried to enter the house as if it were a given. Wait a minute, why are you trying to come into the house? Why? Because we need to have a discussion, don't we?
I don't have anything to discuss with you.
We were deceived by that woman. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't be in this mess. You're involved in this too. The divorce paper is void. First, we need to talk about suing her.
What are you talking about? I've already submitted the divorce papers to the office.
What? Why would you?
You told me to. You said to sign the divorce papers quickly and take them to the office. You wanted a divorce as soon as possible, so as you wished, I submitted them right after you all left.
We're now complete strangers.
If you enter my house without my permission, that's breaking and entering. I'll have to call the police.
You! What are you doing? I don't accept this. We need to talk. My ex-husband tried to forcefully enter the house. The in-laws, tired of being dragged around, said, "Just let us in, we're too tired to walk any further. Let's talk inside. We can think about what to do next after that." As they were trying to come in. Then, hello? Police? There are people trying to force their way into my house. They're all strangers to me. Please come quickly. My daughter, likely having heard our conversation from inside, was speaking on her smartphone while heading to the entrance.
What? The police?
You heard it, right? We're strangers now.
If strangers try to enter someone's house, of course, you call the police. Even a child knows that.
But calling the police, isn't that an overreaction? Do you want us to get arrested?
Why not?
We're strangers after all. All you talk about is strangers. Don't you have anything else to say? It's your fault that it's come to this. Excuse me? It's because you were too busy with parenting and caregiving and didn't pay attention to me. That's why I ended up using that sugar daddy app. Hey, don't blame me, okay? This is all your fault. Whether it's parenting or caregiving, you've always treated it as someone else's problem. Despite it all being related to you, you pushed everything onto me. You've always acted like you were still single. That's why we're in this situation. All right, I apologize. Let's start over. You, me, Lisa, and your parents, the 5 of us, working together, can start afresh. It's all too late now. No matter what you say, I have no intention of starting over with you. Besides, is this really the time to be having this conversation? What? Aren't the police, Lisa, going to arrive soon? Once the police get here, the neighbors will likely come to see what's happening. Are you okay with becoming the talk of the neighborhood after being rejected by the woman you thought was your mistress and then crawling back here? With that, the 3 of them started to fidget and hurriedly left. Really?
Mom, are you okay?
I'm fine. But, calling the police, wasn't that a bit much? I'll have to apologize when the officers arrive. Don't worry, the police aren't coming. What? I just pretended to call the police. I figured they would run off if I did that. Lisa. I mean, this is our home, right? We don't want them to come back again. I hugged my daughter tightly as she said this with a smile. Months have passed since then, and they never appeared before us again. Afterward, I wondered where they went without a place to stay. It seems they couldn't figure out what to do next, and ended up renting a small apartment together as a trio. And why do I know this? Well, what is this? A demand for alimony and child support? Why is this being sent to my place? I had a lawyer track down his whereabouts to demand alimony for his affair and child support for our daughter. Initially, he refused to pay, but that wasn't going to fly. He would have to take responsibility for his actions and pay up. According to what I heard, life wasn't as easy for the 3 of them as they had thought. Hey, Mom! Didn't I tell you to do the laundry and clean up before I got back? What are you talking about? You said you would do it. I was busy taking care of Dad,
How could I possibly do that? There's no need to talk like it's a bother. I didn't hurt my back on purpose.
I heard rumors that they were struggling with all the responsibilities I had been handling falling on them at once. They must be realizing now how much they took me for granted. Meanwhile, my daughter and I continue to live in that house, just the two of us. She successfully got into the high school she wanted. Even without them, we're managing just fine. However, even though my daughter shows me smiles, she might be grieving the loss of her father and grandparents inside. With that thought, I asked her, "I'm sorry, because of me, you can't live with your dad, grandpa, and grandma anymore. Are you okay? Are you not struggling?" Then my daughter looked at me, bewildered, and answered,
"What are you talking about? Why would I struggle? I'm fine as long as I have you, Mom. Actually, I should be the one apologizing."
"Huh? I'm sorry I couldn't help you when you were going through tough times. From now on, I'll be there to support you, so don't worry." My daughter, who I thought was just a little girl, reassured me with her strong words. Just those words alone make me feel like I can face whatever comes our way.
I resolved once again to protect her with all my might until the day she leaves my side.
"Could you move? You're in the way there."
"Hey, wait a sec."
As she said that, my stepdaughter, squatting down, kicked me with her foot while I was cleaning the hallway. I lost my balance and ended up sitting down hard. This kind of thing was a daily occurrence, always happening when my husband, Simon, wasn't around, as if she was targeting those moments to harass me.
"Hey, why did you even marry Dad?" "What?
You're after his money, aren't you?
He makes a good amount, after all." "That's not true at all."
It really wasn't. I didn't even know what Simon did for a living or how much he earned until right before we got married.
"Well, whatever. You'll be leaving here soon anyway." "What are you thinking?"
"If you want to know, how about you beg me?"
"That's not happening."
"Are you sure?"
"It'll be worse for you if Dad finds out."
I couldn't cause trouble for Simon. I had left my pride behind when I divorced my previous husband.
"Tell me, please."
"You actually did it."
"That's seriously messed up." "It was a lie."
"Of course it was. Are you dumb? I didn't say you could stop, though." Then, she tried to hold me down.
"Old ladies like you should just crawl around."
I heard the door open, and Simon came back home. No way. He's back?
"It'll be much worse for you if you tell Dad."
I couldn't say such a thing.
"What's going on here?" "Just noticed some trash on the floor." "You're home early today, aren't you?" "Yeah, I am. Actually, I've got another business trip coming up. It'll be for a week." "When does it start?" "It's still a bit away."
I felt a chilling gaze from behind and got goosebumps. Though there was still some time before Simon's business trip, I ended up breaking my leg at the worst possible timing. Somehow, I managed to be discharged from the hospital, but that's when the real hell began. And Simon left for his business trip. Michelle had been eagerly waiting for this moment.
"I'm going on a trip, so give me some money." "What? There's no way."
"Don't lie to me.
I know about it."
Saying that, she started rummaging through the third drawer of the dresser.
"See? I knew it. I'll be taking this as my travel funds, then."
What Michelle had found was the $20,000 I had saved up for emergencies.
"Wait."
Though I had been discharged, I still needed crutches to walk. As I tried to stand and chase after Michelle, she grabbed my crutches and broke them in half against the wall.
"How could you do this?"
"I don't need fakes like you.
Just try not to die."
And so, I was left alone in the second floor room. Michelle went on her trip, leaving me all alone. There was no longer any need to hold back. A devil whispered inside me. Seek revenge. 7 days later, Michelle came home and, sensing something was off, rushed upstairs in a panic. And so began my revenge. I'm Sally, and I'll be turning 45 this year. I live with my husband, Simon, and his daughter, Michelle. I had thought we would lead a happy life together when we first got married. Surely everyone thinks that at first. Now, I find myself reminiscing more and more about the time when I first met Simon. How did it come to this? Simon and I got married a year ago, but we were originally just shop owners and customers. I had just divorced and honestly had almost no will to live. At that time, I was managing a small cafe that I had started with my previous husband by myself.
You will be fine.
Thanks. Simon was a regular customer who often visited the cafe.
I've been through a divorce too, you know. Really? But I thought you said things were looking like they might work out. I never thought that would happen, especially not cheating. And to think, she seemed so kind.
I vaguely remember her face from the times he came to the shop with her.
And with 2 people at that. I almost passed out right there. That's, well, shocking.
We ended up sharing our feelings, comforting each other. Somehow, we clicked, and we started meeting outside of the shop as well. It began with just meals, but soon we were taking trips on weekends.
By the way, you had a daughter, right? Is she okay? She's in high school now, so she's fine. But still, a girl, you know. Right. Sally didn't have kids, after all. Yeah, that's right.
We thought it impolite to probe too deeply into each other's family matters, so we never brought it up. Though we never officially confessed, after nearly a year together, it felt like we were dating. Not that I was too hung up on definitions. Then, there was this moment.
You know. Yeah? We seem to share a lot of the same values and thoughts. I guess so. That's why I think we're a good match. I think so too. So, we should probably spend more time together. Wait, what are you trying to say?
Will you marry me?
Marry.
Is that a no?
It's not that, but...
I couldn't give an immediate answer. I just couldn't shake off my ex-husband. My divorce was due to psychological abuse. And when he felt like he could be accused, he vanished, leaving only the divorce papers behind. Of course, I don't believe Simon would ever do something like that. I want to be with Sally, always. I'm comfortable with you. And I'm not asking for anything. Simon kept insisting on how much I meant to him. I've never been approached like this before.
Are you okay?
Sorry, got a bit too excited. Seeing him like that. I couldn't help but find it endearing.
About your proposal, if you're okay with me.
Really?
That's great.
But my worries weren't over yet. I had yet to meet Simon's daughter. That chance came soon enough. Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Michelle. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. I'm Sally. So, Dad's decided to marry Sally. That's right. Congratulations. Thanks. Looks like we'll have to move then. The engagement went over smoothly. Then came the moving preparations.
I've never asked before, but what does Simon do?
Now that you mention it, I haven't told you. He works as an interpreter. An interpreter. I would have never guessed. Right? Simon is fluent in 5 languages.
But, he might have to travel for work, which could be inconvenient. That's okay.
Appreciate it. The move went smoothly, and our life as a family of 3 began. Michelle, initially quiet, gradually opened up. Sally. Oh, no.
Mom? You don't have to call me that if it feels forced. Just use whatever's comfortable for you.
Thanks.
So, I was wondering why you decided to get married. Well, maybe because I was passionately talking into wanting to get married for hours?
Really? Dad did that? From what I've heard, Simon seemed to be a serious guy who didn't joke much at home. But, the Simon I've seen is quite the opposite, full of humor. Our relationship continued to deepen, and Michelle went off to college. But then, Michelle started acting strangely.
Michelle, about Dad's upcoming business trip.
She used to respond normally, but now.
Sorry, but can you not talk to me right now? What's wrong? You weren't like this before.
Huh? Are you seriously clueless? It didn't take long to see Michelle's true colors. Well, I'm off on my business trip. I'll be back the day after tomorrow.
Got it. Take care.
Okay, I'm off. It was the first time Michelle and I would be alone together. Ever since her sudden change of attitude a while ago, I've found it a bit difficult to interact with her. Maybe she's having a tough time adjusting to college. I couldn't tell. But Michelle made the first move. Hey, can you not get too cocky?
I'm not trying to.
Huh?
Just look at how Dad acts.
He's always talking about you.
That doesn't mean I'm getting cocky. Your smugness is irritating.
What are you trying to do, cozy up to Dad?
What are you talking about?
The complaints continued. Listening to Michelle, one thing became clear. She really loves her dad.
Are you jealous by any chance?
A moment of silence followed. Huh? Why would I be jealous of you?
I'm not a child anymore.
At the time, I didn't think much of it. I would regret saying that later on. Michelle locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. Even knocking got no response. Then, the next day. I'm going out with friends, give me some money.
Money? Don't you get an allowance from Dad?
That's not enough.
Then, we can talk about it when he gets back.
Michelle, scratching her head, slammed her hand on the desk. Didn't you listen? I said I'm going out with friends. Just give it to me. Realizing she wouldn't give up, I decided to give her the money.
Is this enough? Only $100? The shop's doing well, right?
Give me more.
That's all you're getting. I could tell Dad, you know?
With a face like she'd swallowed a bug, Michelle left. I couldn't help but sigh. Why did it come to this? When Simon returned from his trip, Michelle acted as if nothing had happened.
How were the two of you? It was your first time alone, right?
Before I could answer, Michelle cut in. We were fine.
Got along well, right, Mom?
She beamed at me. Yeah, that's right.
Good. I was a bit worried, but it seems I didn't need to be.
Exactly. Dad worries too much.
Oh, right. I got a souvenir for Sally. A souvenir?
Yes.
Here.
The souvenir was the aromatherapy oil I had mentioned wanting before. Thank you. But wasn't this a limited edition?
Just happened to find it.
I felt Michelle's glaring eyes on me then. Maybe her insides were boiling.
Isn't there something for Michelle?
Right. Almost forgot. Here, Michelle, this is for you. It was obviously a much larger bag than mine. She lit up with excitement.
Thank you, Dad.
But when she saw what was inside, Michelle's excitement faded.
I remembered you saying you liked it before, so I chose it.
Thanks. I'm happy. Despite her words, her face was strained.
I'm tired now. I'm going to bed. Okay, good night.
Once Simon was in the bedroom, Michelle threw her gift on the floor.
What are you doing? Why do you get something expensive and I get this childish stuffed animal?
Michelle had received a stuffed animal of a character popular among the younger generation as her souvenir.
Let's trade.
Huh?
Just give it to me. Stop it.
Michelle tried to forcibly take the bottle of aromatherapy oil from me.
Dad will wake up, you know?
Then give it to me quickly. After a struggle, I couldn't match the strength of a teenager. The bottle slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor.
It's your fault for not giving it to me sooner.
Blaming me entirely, Michelle returned to her room. I gathered the pieces of the broken bottle. Luckily, a little bit of oil was left, which I carefully put back into the box. The smell of lavender spread throughout the living room. This wasn't how I wanted to experience it. I kept scrubbing the floor over and over. The next morning, Simon noticed the smell too.
Did you use it already?
Yeah, but maybe I used a bit too much.
No, it's fine. I love this scent anyway. Then Michelle came into the living room.
Good morning, Michelle. Smells good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Got classes today?
Yeah, I do.
Are they fun?
Kind of. She looked grumpy when she woke up, but her mood improved as she talked with Simon. Before we knew it, it was time to head to the shop.
I'll be leaving soon. All right. Is it that time already? Then I'll come with you. Just give me a minute.
Because our conversation was interrupted, Michelle started to get irritated. Her irritation was clearly directed at me, even without seeing her face. Sorry for the wait. Shall we go then?
Yeah. Don't be late, Michelle.
Once we arrived at the shop, we immediately started preparing. Thankfully, we had a full house of customers again today. All thanks to Simon's various pieces of advice and even financial support, despite my objections. He insisted it was for my sake too. While closing the shop at 7 p.m., an unexpected person showed up. Long time no see, Sally. I turned around at the familiar voice.
Why are you here?
Why? This place is mine too, isn't it?
It's mine now. Leave.
I've changed. So, let's start over.
I've remarried. I can't be with you. Even if I wasn't married, I wouldn't want to be with you.
Realizing this could go badly, I tried to push past my ex-husband to get outside. But he grabbed my arm and pulled me back. I can't forget you. He started to lick my neck, giving me goosebumps all over. Then, I heard the sound of a camera shutter from somewhere. I couldn't see who it was, but they ran off immediately after. With that distraction, I managed to push him away and escape.
Don't ever come here again. I'll call the cops.
All right, he said as he left. My heart was still racing. I never thought he would show up here. I quickly closed the shop and went home. I'm home. No reply. Simon had said he'd be late, too. Maybe Michelle hadn't returned from school yet. I sat down to think about how to deal with my ex showing up at the shop. While I was lost in thought, someone entered the living room. It was Michelle. With a somewhat smug look. Michelle.
To think you'd do something like that behind Dad's back.
What are you talking about? It's too late to hide it now. Michelle showed me her phone's screen. It was from when my ex-husband confronted me at the shop.
So, it was you who took that photo. That's solid evidence of cheating, isn't it? If I show this to Dad, you're finished. You're misunderstanding something. Excuses now? It's not an excuse. The person in this photo isn't a lover.
Then who is it? Tell me.
That man is. Your voices were loud enough to hear outside. What's going on?
Just then, Simon came back home. Listen to this.
This tramp was cheating at the shop. Cheating?
Look at this. She showed Simon the photo. See, just like I said.
This is.
Simon was taken aback, as Michelle struggled to suppress her laughter. But then.
Did everything turn out okay?
Yes.
Nothing else happened?
No.
He ran off when I said I'd call the cops. I see.
What are you guys talking about?
Michelle, did you really think this photo was evidence of cheating? Well, anyone would think that if they saw this. This man, isn't he your ex-husband?
Simon asked, even though he had never shown her a photo of my ex-husband before. Exactly. He wanted to get back together with me.
We need to come up with a plan then.
She could be lying, you know.
Enough. If that's what you want to believe, then fine. Time will tell.
Later on, they went to the police, and the shop started to be watched more closely. Michelle's photo proved to be useful. It was also discovered that my ex-husband was already wanted for fraud. Since this incident, Michelle became much quieter and started to treat me kindly. Like when Simon and I first got married.
Mom, I have a favor to ask. A favor? My friend's birthday is coming up, and I was wondering if we could use the shop to celebrate. That's fine by me.
Thanks. She had never relied on me this much before. So, I ended up trusting her words, forgetting all about the past. But that trust would lead me into an even deeper darkness. Michelle kept being kind to me, asking about the shop and my relationship with Simon, things she would never normally inquire about. This continued daily, eventually causing me to become suspicious. And then, the day came.
I'll come by after the shop closes. Got it. Is something happening today? Remember, Michelle wanted to celebrate her friend's birthday here. Oh yeah, she did mention that. But keep it moderate. I will.
I waited for Michelle and her friends after closing the shop. 5 people arrived, including Michelle. But all the others were men. For the time being, I prepared the alcohol we bought and the party started.
Come on, Mom, have a drink with us. I'm good. I'm not much of a drinker.
I've always just sipped on a glass of alcohol, hardly ever drinking. Despite my refusal, they kept insisting, so I ended up drinking a glass of beer. It had been years since I last drank, so it hit me instantly.
Come on, it's a special day.
Drink up. I lost count of how many drinks I had after that. Next thing I knew, I was sitting on the sofa. Michelle was saying something, but I couldn't make it out. Then, I felt like I was being undressed. My vision gradually cleared.
What are you doing?
Indeed, they were trying to take off my clothes. Now they were attempting to remove my skirt too. I tried to escape, but I was held down and couldn't move.
Michelle! Stop them right now.
Why?
Was everything a lie?
Obviously.
By the way, these guys are interested in someone like you. I posted online and they showed up right away.
What about friends?
That was a lie too. I don't even know their names.
I tried desperately to move, but they were too strong, and I couldn't do anything. Finally, my skirt was removed, and I was left in my underwear.
Look here. I'm going to record this.
Do you think this is okay?
Oh right. Can't have sound, or it'll be too obvious. I'll have to delete that later.
What's the purpose of doing this?
To show Dad. To get a divorce. You're not needed here. You're annoying, so maybe I should gag you too.
Just stop it.
Really, you're so annoying. Just do whatever you want with her.
In the end, I was stripped naked and violated by the men. I don't remember anything after that. When I realized, the shop was empty, and I just felt nauseous. I quickly got dressed and went home.
You're late.
Where's Michelle?
She's already back.
I see. I showered, trying to wash off the men's touch. I couldn't tell anyone about this. But this was exactly what Michelle wanted. After that, I had no choice but to accept whatever Michelle did to me.
You're in the way there. Can you move?
Wait a second.
As I said that, Michelle kicked me while I was squatting down, cleaning the corridor. I lost my balance and fell.
Hey! Why did you marry Dad?
Huh?
It's for the money, right? He earns a lot, after all.
That's not true.
Of course, it's not. I didn't even know about my husband's job or income until just before we got married.
Well, it doesn't matter. You'll be leaving here soon anyway.
What are you planning?
If you want to know, why don't you beg me?
That's impossible.
Really? I think it'd be worse for you if Dad found out.
I can't trouble Simon. And now, I'm at Michelle's mercy.
Please, tell me.
You actually did it. This is seriously messed up.
Was that a lie?
Obviously.
Are you stupid? And I didn't say you could stop.
Then, she tried to pin me down.
An old lady like you should just grovel on the floor.
I heard the front door open, and Simon came back. No way.
He's back? If you tell Dad, things will get much worse.
I couldn't possibly say that.
What are you doing there?
Just some trash on the floor. You're back early today, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got another business trip coming up. A week this time.
When does it start?
Not for a while yet.
I felt a chilling gaze from behind and goosebumps formed on my skin. Then, I ended up breaking my bones. It was all Michelle's doing. I was pushed from behind while going down the stairs at home. I tumbled to the bottom, and when I looked up, Michelle was laughing like she was possessed.
I'll call an ambulance for you. But say you fell yourself, okay?
After being taken to the hospital, I needed surgery. My left leg was fixed with bolts, and my right ankle was broken, leaving me unable to walk.
Are you okay? Don't push yourself.
Thank you.
I heard you fell down the stairs.
Well. Michelle was looking at us from behind Simon. Yeah, that's what happened. So silly of me.
For now, just focus on getting better.
Michelle occasionally came to visit me under the guise of checking in, but it wasn't out of concern, she just came to laugh at me.
How are you feeling?
Average, I guess.
Just take it easy. Though, I guess you can't do much since you can't walk.
I had recovered enough to walk with crutches. But even after being discharged, I couldn't feel at ease. Before I knew it, the day Simon had to leave for a business trip arrived. I'm sorry to leave you like this, especially now.
It's work, so it can't be helped. Michelle, you take good care of her, okay?
Yeah, leave it to me. Simon left for his trip. Michelle had been eagerly waiting for this moment. As soon as Simon left, she came to me.
I'm going on a trip, so give me some money.
What? There's no way.
Don't lie. I know you have it.
She then started rummaging through the third drawer of the dresser.
See? I knew it. I'll be taking this as my travel fund.
What Michelle had found was the $20,000 I had saved for emergencies.
Wait. How did you know about that?
I'm not going to tell you.
Did you sneak in here?
Maybe. Her expression made it clear it was true. She hadn't taken it before, perhaps wanting to see the despair on my face as she took it right in front of me. I tried to stand up and chase after Michelle.
Just die already.
She grabbed my crutches, smashing them against the wall until they broke in half.
How could you do this?
People like you, a fake mother, are not needed. Just try not to die, okay?
And so, I was left alone in the upstairs room. Michelle went on her trip, leaving me by myself. It was clear now, I didn't need to endure any longer. A voice within me whispered, "Seek revenge." It was difficult without crutches, but not impossible to stand. I thought of contacting Simon, but my smartphone had been taken by Michelle, leaving me no way to reach out. But I couldn't just give up. Somehow, I made it down to the first floor, used an umbrella as a makeshift cane, and went to the neighbors for help. I borrowed their phone and called Simon.
What? Are you serious?
It might be hard to believe.
I'm coming home right away. Just hang in there a little longer.
Simon returned as soon as he could.
What happened?
I recounted everything Michelle had done to me since we got married, as far as I could remember. Finally, I mustered the courage to tell him about the incident at the shop. Simon was trembling either from anger or shock.
I can't forgive this, not even if she's my daughter.
Will you help me? Huh? If your anger is real, I need your help to get back at her. Okay. What do you need me to do?
Well, about that. We prepared and waited for Michelle's return. 7 days later, an oblivious Michelle came home cheerfully.
I'm home. No one's answering? I wonder how she's doing. Maybe she really died.
Then, as she tried to go upstairs, she noticed something was off.
What? The smell, it's like something's rotting.
Michelle opened the bedroom door. And then she let out a scream that echoed throughout the house. Simon quietly approached the bedroom. Peeking in, he saw something resembling a person lying on the bed.
What should we do? Should we dispose of it somewhere? But it might be found immediately.
Hearing that, Simon burst into the room.
What are you doing? Dad? Why are you here? I thought you were on a business trip.
I got a call saying Michelle was up to no good.
But...
Michelle turned her eyes to the bed. She must have thought I was actually dead.
I'm right here.
Why are you alive? Then, what's this?
Oh, that? Simon and I prepared it. But I never thought you'd try to dispose of it. How rotten can you get?
We had found a love doll that looked like a person while searching for something convincing. It was expensive, but we couldn't worry about the cost.
So, you haven't learned independence at your age, huh? Then I'll dismantle that. Go ahead.
Michelle pulled out her smartphone and showed Simon the video in question. However, Simon showed no reaction.
What's this supposed to mean? Come on, this is clearly over the line, isn't it? This proves how dangerous she is. That's why you should divorce her.
The only dangerous person here is you. I know everything. How? Did she tell you herself?
Yes, and you know what? The shop is fully equipped with security cameras. Everything was recorded. Even the things you ordered.
No way.
At this point, Michelle had no way out.
Just so you know, what you did is a crime. And so is what those men did.
You've done something foolish. I wish I could punish you with my own hands.
Seeing Simon's face, Michelle seemed to lose all strength and just sat down.
The police have already been informed. You might even get arrested. Give up. You're no daughter or anything to me anymore. You've gone too far.
Soon after, the police were notified. A patrol car came to take her in for questioning. She looked as if her soul had left her body.
Are you okay? I'm fine. But Simon, I'm ready for whatever comes.
The police said that the men who attacked me were also arrested. They all claimed they were instigated by a woman. The exchanges on Michelle's smartphone were the conclusive evidence. Later, Michelle was charged as an instigator.
This was the right thing, wasn't it? Of course. Sally, you did nothing wrong. Yeah.
Simon hugged me gently. There was no comfort like it. Later, we decided to visit Michelle. She looked emaciated, almost like a different person.
Dad. You came. I came to see if you've really learned your lesson. Of course, I have. I doubt that.
Why are you even here? It's all your fault, isn't it?
Simon sighed deeply.
Just like Sally said, you haven't learned a thing.
No, that's not true. I really have. Believe me.
You're an adult now. You'll have to live with your actions and their consequences. Goodbye.
Simon left first.
Now you see. If only you hadn't done what you did. Or maybe if you'd been more independent, this wouldn't have happened.
What are you talking about?
You've been abandoned. So good luck.
Wait. Come back here.
When was the last time I felt this relieved? But the scars I've received will last a lifetime. Still, Simon is by my side. And that's all I need. My kind and gentle father-in-law passed away after a long illness. His funeral, attended not only by family members but also by many of his business associates due to his wide circle of acquaintances, turned out to be a grand affair.
I too wish to be sent off by my family and many friends like this at my end. I'll pick out some background music, so I'm counting on you.
My husband told me without changing his usual attitude, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. To me, it was outrageous coming from him.
Ask your real family for that. We're just a family for show, after all. There's no obligation to go that far, right?
I declared, claiming to know all his secrets and confronting him with just a bit of evidence. His face turned pale and he freaked out.
All of Dad's stuff is going to be inherited by me, his son.
These words, blurted out in panic, only led my husband to face further hell. I moved in with my in-laws immediately after getting married. Although I was hesitant when the idea of living with my in-laws was first proposed before marriage, it would be a lie to say I didn't consider it. However, my in-laws were very kind people, and my husband assured me he would always be on my side, no matter what. Encouraged by the kindness of my in-laws and my husband's strong words, I decided to move in. After getting married, I continued working for a while but decided to quit my job just before turning 30 and became a full-time housewife. Partly because I wanted children and partly because my father-in-law's health was gradually declining. He kept working, saying it was too early for him to retire, but he started spending more time at home, going out less on his days off. My mother-in-law suggested he go to the hospital, but he never went, dismissing it as just a decline in physical strength that comes with age. Soon, my pregnancy became evident. My father-in-law, looking forward to the birth of his grandchild, seemed to gradually regain his spirits upon learning of my pregnancy. When my son was born, seeing him happily holding the baby made our family bond stronger, and we deeply felt our happiness. About a year after my son's birth, my husband was transferred to a different department at work. His job content seemed to change, leading to increased overtime. He came home late, catching the last train for half the week, and by the latter half of the month, his overtime hours exceeded the limit, leaving him unpaid for extra work. I doubted the sense in working overtime under such conditions. If it was a company mandate, it seemed clearly exploitative, and I thought it might be better to take action. Meanwhile, my husband started staying out more, citing business trips. Despite being a weekday, he often came home late from drinking parties. Gradually, he started making more excuses to go out alone on weekends and holidays as well. I had tolerated his absence from home on workdays without complaint, understanding from my own work experience that unpaid overtime was sometimes necessary to finish work. I understood that such things inevitably happen when you're working. However, I couldn't understand why he would be so busy as to give up his holidays as well. Recently, having seen news stories about overwork deaths, I couldn't help worrying about his health. My husband, perhaps annoyed by my interference, began to be vague about his reasons for going out.
Hey, who exactly calls a family man out on his day off? Someone from work? They know you have a young child, right?
We had received birth gifts from his colleagues and his direct boss, so I found it hard to believe that they would overwork him. There was a time when such practices were tolerated, but nowadays, companies that encourage leaving on time and discourage working on holidays are becoming more common. I wanted to speak out against any company or boss that would deliberately do the opposite.
Don't meddle in a man's work. I don't want to meddle in your work. But is it too much to ask for you to act a bit more like a father? I'm earning money as a father, aren't I? What more do you want?
And so, our conversations always ended in arguments. My mother-in-law also warned that if things continued this way, my husband would become a stranger rather than a father to our child, but her attempts to stop his outings were utterly ineffective.
First of all, the reason I can never relax is because you're completely failing as a wife.
It started with him saying I should stay up and wait for him to come home because I'm his wife, questioning why I would ever eat before him, and stating it's obvious that he should be the first to take a bath. Essentially, my husband began to dictate how a wife should behave. Once our child grows a bit, I might be able to adjust my meals and wake-up times to match my husband's. But right now, with a young child, it's inevitable that our life centers around the child more than my husband. My mother-in-law strongly opposed him on this matter.
Basically, you lack feminine charm. Before being a mother, you're my wife and a woman, right? Women like you must be what they mean when they say a woman gives up being a woman once she gets married. I'm just unlucky to have married such a woman.
How can I be expected to keep up appearances and take care of the house and child? If you want me to stay beautiful, help out with the child rearing. If I had time to put on makeup, I'd rather lay down for a bit, and even if I want to refresh my wardrobe, shopping with a child is anything but relaxing. Without my husband's help in taking care of our child, maintaining the image of the beautiful wife he demands is impossible. Just saying whatever he wants. His uncooperative attitude made me suspect him of cheating. There were several signs that led me to suspect infidelity. I might be accused of taking dramas and stories from cheated-on wives too seriously, but the frequent business trips, weekend work, and calls to come in on holidays were telling. The scarce time he spent at home, the many outings under the guise of work, mentioning his boss or colleagues to justify his departures. There was no trace of women's cosmetics or perfume on him, nor excessive credit card use, but his attitude of "don't complain, I'm giving you living expenses," was suspicious. It's as if he was told that as long as he provides financially, nothing else should matter. Around that time, my father-in-law's previously diagnosed illness worsened. With my mother-in-law's persuasion, he finally underwent tests at the hospital, but his disease was chronic and would require ongoing management. My father-in-law, already retired, was living a life of medication and compromise, with my husband's income supporting our household. Perhaps this financial pressure was why my husband's attitude became more domineering and harsh. Even with two women, there's a limit to how much we can support my father-in-law. He decided to be hospitalized to avoid a sudden turn for the worse, considering the burden on me and my mother-in-law. Going to visit him in the hospital was challenging. There was no suitable hospital nearby, and it took about 30 minutes by car to reach a large hospital equipped to deal with his condition. Neither my mother-in-law nor I drive, so we had to rely on taxis or public transport. How much easier it would have been if my husband could just drive us. Visiting? Carrying stuff? It's not necessary. It's just my dad making a big deal out of a checkup and hospital stay. My husband dismissed the idea of visiting the hospital and never once went. Even when I said it would help if he just drove us close by, he insisted that my mother-in-law and I were exaggerating and let time pass without offering any assistance. As my father-in-law's condition deteriorated, despite our desperate care, he passed away. A few days before his death, my husband said he had a long business trip. This was when the doctor had told us he had only a couple of days left. What kind of company forces work at a time like this? I rarely raised my voice, but I couldn't help but lash out at my husband. But he just retorted, "Who do you think you're living off?" and left. My mother-in-law had hurt her back caring for my father-in-law, so we stayed at a nearby hotel to tend to him. There was no time to merely grieve, we were busy arranging the funeral and everything that came with it. My father-in-law was a highly respected man, and despite being retired, many of his former colleagues and subordinates attended his funeral. Many volunteered to help, providing great relief to my mother-in-law and me. No family member spoke ill of him, they tearfully shared memories of my father-in-law. His funeral was a warm and gentle farewell. However, my husband, who acted as the chief mourner, ruined the funeral's peaceful atmosphere with his behavior at the meal afterward. "Hey, we need more booze here. And we're running low on meatloaf at this table. You're the wife, you should be more attentive." We had entrusted the funeral arrangements to the funeral home, anticipating a large turnout. The staff could have easily handled requests for additional drinks or food. Yet, instead of speaking directly to them, he first demanded of me. Moreover, during my father-in-law's battle with illness, my husband embarrassed me in front of distant relatives who couldn't visit and his company colleagues by saying things like, "Sorry for my useless wife. She's just like that at home too, and she leaves all the caregiving to my mother and the hospital while she just lazes around at home, the worst kind of wife." But that's exactly what he was doing. I was furious but realized arguing would just put me on the same level as him. So, I swallowed my irritation and said, "Please let me know if there's anything I can do," despite my shortcomings, trying to maintain his dignity. But when my mother-in-law suggested it might be time to wrap up, nearly everyone had stayed till the end, mourning my father-in-law. Seeing this, my husband muttered something about wanting to be sent off by family in the same way. He might not have been aware he spoke aloud, but I heard him clearly and thought, "How dare you say that?
Since I can't fulfill that wish, why don't you ask your other family?
When he looked puzzled, I mentioned his wish to have a funeral attended by family like his father's. Realizing his thoughts had slipped out, he started making excuses in a panic.
I'm a good husband, right? We're not struggling financially, and our future's secure, right? What's wrong with talking about my ideal funeral?
However, the remaining relatives were puzzled by the mention of another family, looking back and forth between us. It was only then my husband realized the gravity of the situation. Sweating and eyes darting around.
Another family? No idea what you're talking about. Maybe my dad had a secret child or something?
Despite his attempts to feign innocence, I pulled out a document entrusted to me by my father-in-law and shoved it in front of my husband, turning his face pale. It was as if I was watching the blood drain from his face. Turns out, I wasn't the only one suspecting my husband of cheating. I only harbored suspicions, but never actually took any action. More accurately, I wanted to act but couldn't. As a stay-at-home mom, I had limited funds and couldn't just go to a detective agency or follow him around with our son in tow. But my father-in-law had used his savings to hire a detective to investigate my husband's behavior. Even before I had noticed anything, my father-in-law wanted to hand over the evidence of my husband's infidelity to me, while he still had the consciousness and had called me over to do so. Shortly after giving me the documents, he passed away. He had introduced me to a lawyer friend in case I needed help. I had already consulted with my mother-in-law the day I received the documents. We decided to confront my husband after all funeral-related matters were settled, thinking it inappropriate to involve the relatives in our personal issues until then. But with my husband continuing his self-centered behavior, disregarding our feelings, I decided not to hold back any longer.
Thinking you could get away with just an affair was a big mistake,
I said, scattering not just the paper with evidence of his infidelity but also photos of them being affectionate, entering love hotels, on vacations together.
There's a child involved with your mistress, right? When's the due date?
It aligns with when my father-in-law decided to be hospitalized. While my mother-in-law and I were caring for him, you were getting your mistress pregnant. My mother-in-law was furious. I was worried her blood pressure would skyrocket. Some relatives tried to calm her, while others condemned my husband as a disgrace to the family. With no one on his side, my husband kept making feeble excuses to get through the situation.
I was just hanging out with a girl from the bar, that's all.
Even though his excuses for the trips and hotels might somehow make sense, they were desperately weak. Among the relatives, some who own bars pointed out that getting someone pregnant is way beyond normal socializing if you're not working there. Even if it was just hanging out at a bar, a man with a wife and child should decline intimate after-hours or companionship out of respect for his wife. My husband might have thought that mentioning his connections to bar owners would win him some sympathy from the male relatives. However, not a single male relative showed any sympathy for him. Instead, they looked at him with disgust and criticized him. Then my husband became defiant. He had planned to keep his affair hidden until he received his estate from my father-in-law, but since it was out in the open, he saw no need to hide it anymore. He stated that once the inheritance was settled, he would divorce me, marry his mistress, and start a new life with a new family.
All this is your fault. You're such a failure of a wife. Dad favored you because you must have flirted with him behind our backs, right? Compared to Mom, even someone like you would seem better.
Hearing this, my mother-in-law cried out, "What a disgrace you are," and then broke down crying. My father-in-law had been kind and attentive to me because I had lost my own father early on. I had confided to him that I didn't know what it was like to have a father. That conversation happened in the presence of my mother-in-law, who said it was okay to think of my father-in-law as my real father. So, I admired and was sometimes spoiled by my father-in-law as if he were my real father. My in-laws had always wanted a daughter, so they treated me not just as a daughter-in-law but as their own daughter. That's all there was to it. To equate the affection of my in-laws with something romantic was outrageous. My husband's rotten brain, which linked every interaction with the opposite sex to romance, made me nauseous. Into this chaotic scene stepped a man. The lawyer my father-in-law had introduced to me. The lawyer told my husband, "You're not getting any inheritance, you know?" If my husband hadn't brought up the inheritance, the lawyer might have just watched to see how things unfolded. But since my husband mentioned divorcing after getting his inheritance, the lawyer thought it best to clarify the facts sooner. My father-in-law had rewritten his will in his hospital room, not long before he passed away, wanting to ensure my mother-in-law and I could inherit without leaving anything to my husband. My husband insisted he had a right to some portion of the inheritance as his son, confident at least in receiving the legal minimum share. My father-in-law had anticipated such a scenario and arranged his estate so that even if my husband made a claim for his statutory share, he would receive next to nothing.
When I say next to nothing, after deducting legal fees and such, it might even be less than nothing,
said the lawyer. I'm not sure how much lawyers charge, but knowing my father-in-law, he made sure the amount my husband could get would indeed be minimal. My husband, who worked for a decent company and believed he would be financially well off after inheriting, had been squandering money with his mistress ever since he found out about his father's illness and retired early. He was convinced the inheritance would more than cover his expenses. My husband worked for a pretty good company, so his salary was decent. However, the living expenses he bragged about providing were meager compared to his salary, and when I questioned this, he made excuses about salary cuts and missing bonuses, but it seems all that money was actually spent on his affair. My father-in-law was a high-ranking executive at a major company. I heard that when my father-in-law retired early and was rehired, thanks to his respected personality, he got rehired under very favorable conditions. I remember my husband bragging that he never struggled with money. Perhaps that's why he thought he would inherit millions, maybe even up to $2 million. My husband collapsed to the floor in shock. My mother-in-law, crying and furious, wondered aloud how her son turned out this way, blaming herself. I believe, while parents' influence is significant during childhood, it's up to the individual once they enter society. It seems my husband could be easily influenced by the people he associated with. My husband's attitude worsened after starting his affair, perhaps influenced by his mistress. Even if the mistress was the root cause, as an adult, my husband is responsible for his own actions. How did it come to this? He kept asking himself, shouting. The relatives and my mother-in-law looked at him coldly and threw him out. I'm the chief mourner. You can't do the cremation or burial without me. Show some respect. You don't need a chief mourner to carry out a cremation. After all, cremation is a legal obligation, and failing to do so would mean we'd be charged with abandoning a corpse. The placement of ashes doesn't require a chief mourner either. Just some useless idiot blabbering, we said dismissively, effectively erasing my husband's presence. Weeks later, when my husband unexpectedly returned to the family home, I confronted him with divorce papers. He claimed he was the one who should be initiating the divorce, but I informed him that since he was the one who cheated, if I dragged my feet, the divorce wouldn't go through easily. I considered dragging it out as a form of resistance or retaliation, but with a child involved, that wasn't the best option. For my son's sake, we needed to change our environment quickly. My husband was unhappy about losing control, but since he also wanted the divorce to happen soon, he reluctantly agreed to my terms. However, that didn't mean I wanted anything more to do with him. My mother-in-law and I told him to enjoy his new family and kicked him out of the family home. His belongings were already tossed in a corner of the yard. I told him we'd send the rest to his new address, fully ejecting him from our lives. Later, he showed up with his mistress, both looking defeated yet strangely triumphant. The mistress taunted me, suggesting I must be bitter for losing my husband and claimed it was just deserts for neglecting my appearance. She then gloated that the estate would all be my husband's, leaving me penniless in the divorce. It seemed my husband hadn't told her about being left with nothing. She arrogantly claimed her unborn child would have a better life than my son, who would be living with a penniless mother. Just then, a message from my husband popped up on my phone. Calmly asking the mistress to wait, I checked the message. My husband was demanding child support for the unborn child, claiming it would be unfair for the siblings to live in different circumstances. While my in-laws might consider both children their grandchildren, could I really feel affection for a child conceived while my father-in-law was suffering? I ignored my husband's demand and revealed to the mistress details about her I hadn't mentioned to my husband yet, including her name, workplace, and family background. She freaked out, knowing her secrets. The mistress was furious, wondering how I knew so much about her background. When she raised her hand to me, I warned. Going to hit me? I'd sue for assault. Everything here is being recorded by surveillance cameras. Pointing to the camera in the corner, she reluctantly lowered her hand. My father-in-law had advised me to always keep evidence. So with the help of relatives, we had installed cameras after his funeral. I told my husband that the documents my father-in-law left clearly stated the mistress was his direct subordinate, and I would report their affair to his company. It didn't matter who seduced whom. They were both consenting adults in the affair. My husband begged me not to report him, clinging to my legs. Disgusted, I shook him off. Knowing they couldn't afford to have the evidence against them, they left without further resistance. Later, I sued my husband for alimony and child support and the mistress for compensation, through a lawyer introduced by my father-in-law. As I expected a response, the mistress called me in a fury. Having gotten my number from my husband's phone, she wrongly assumed I'd forgive and back down if she kept quiet. She ranted about misunderstanding the situation and regretted not hitting me when she had the chance. I never said I'd forgive. I merely stated I'd sue for assault if she attacked me. The call went silent. I suspected they were up to no good, but surprisingly, the next words were an apology. The mistress started by saying she had been informed by the lawyer I hired that my mother-in-law and I were to receive my father-in-law's inheritance, and nothing was left for my husband. She apologized for her past behavior and asked if some of the estate could be shared with my husband, suggesting perhaps the claims for alimony and such could be waived as a result. I argued that an apology doesn't erase everything and that matters like these should not be settled lightly but with tangible resolutions. In other words, I rejected the mistress's request. I had no intention of agreeing to any sort of deal. My husband, who was listening in, began arguing with her about the plan going awry, leading to a major fight between them. They were both so out of touch with reality, perhaps they deserved each other. I wanted as little as possible to do with my husband's face or voice. I was ready to take this to court if necessary, but that would be more troublesome for him, especially since I heard his direct boss despises dishonesty. When I mentioned that this could become known to his boss, my husband quickly agreed to my terms for divorce, alimony, and child support, apparently seeing his boss as a significant threat. The mistress, however, brazenly challenged me to report them, so I did just that, as she wished. It turned out to be quite the blowback for my ex-husband, but it's his fault for not being able to control his affair partner. I later found out that my ex-husband's boss was a woman who had divorced due to her husband's affair with a younger subordinate, much like my situation. Upon hearing my report, she promised to impose the most severe penalty possible. Both ended up being relocated to different positions as a punishment. My ex-husband reluctantly accepted the reassignment, but his affair had become known even at his new location, leading to his eventual resignation. The mistress protested the reassignment to HR but to no avail, and, faced with raising a child, she quit, not wanting to work in such a place. With my ex-husband unemployed, he couldn't cover alimony and child support with his savings alone and ended up in debt. The only lenders willing to deal with an unemployed person were dubious at best, so he's now chased by repayments. We changed all the locks at the family home, making it impossible for my ex-husband to return even if he wanted to. Homeless, he moved into the mistress's apartment, but continued unemployment led to eviction threats due to unpaid rent. They ended up turning to the mistress's parents' home, but things didn't go as planned. While her parents scolded her, they still took her in, along with her newborn. Her parents said the child was innocent and allowed her to live at their home but refused to provide any support for childcare or her actions that led to the destruction of my family. However, my ex-husband, having dishonored their beloved daughter, incited the wrath of his mistress's parents and was driven out. Rejected by her parents as trash. My ex-husband couldn't return to the family home or seek help from relatives. His dreams of a happy life with a younger woman shattered by reality. The reality is being abandoned by both families, losing work, and having nowhere to belong. He's now living in a dingy, bathroom-less apartment, cutting corners to pay off the debt from the lawsuit and monthly child support. Struggling to find steady work, he's living day to day on odd jobs. Yet, the mistress hasn't abandoned him. Working hard herself for their young child. And the worthless man she's chosen. Despite being betrayed, I now feel grateful she took this loser off my hands. Thanks to my father-in-law, I was able to push this shallow man to his limits. As a parent, I understand the difficult decisions involved in protecting a child. Now, as a mother, I'm determined to do anything for my son. I'm not sure I could make the same tough choices as my father-in-law if faced with his situation. But I'm committed to raising my son properly. We're now living modestly in the family home my father-in-law left. Trying to grow and learn together as a new mother and son.
Are you Ken?
I haven't seen my grandson, Ken, since he was in elementary school, but I was sure it was him. Ken should be in high school this year, so the age fits. However, I didn't recognize the child he was carrying on his back. Grandma. Long time no see. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't know what to say, torn between the pain of seeing him and the joy of our reunion. Ken, now fully grown, was not one to show his emotions, in contrast to me.
Please, let us stay for the night.
I didn't know what had happened, but there must be a reason they were out in such light clothing on a snowy day, in such a place. It must have been hard, carrying a child through the snow over such a difficult distance. The child on his back was shivering. Their limbs were red and black from the cold, and their lips had turned blue. Ken's legs were also shaking, seemingly unable to carry the child any longer. I was about to nod as if to say of course when.
Don't joke with me. I can't take care of that kid.
The person who came stomping to the entrance, making loud footsteps, was my husband, Felix, who was supposed to be watching TV in the back of the house. It seems he had overheard our conversation. Even I flinched, used to him as I am, a high schooler like him would surely be frightened. However, yeah, I thought so. He said, with a wry smile. It was a hollow smile that twisted only his mouth. As if he had expected just that response. My name is Anna Smith. I live a relaxed life in the suburbs, a bit away from the city center, similar to living in a place like Nebraska. I'm in my late 60s now, and since my husband, Felix, has retired, we're living on our pension. Felix has always been very stubborn and difficult. When he was working, he often clashed with others and seemed to be constantly involved in trouble. But those who knew him well understood that Felix was just clumsy. He's always hated anything dishonest, and once he's made up his mind, he rarely changes it. And he was terribly bad at expressing his feelings. Back then, I knew that Felix was more stubborn and clumsy than others, so I sometimes stepped in to help. Felix was not good at work like others, but he was great with people. In a way, we were like oil and water, but we naturally hit it off. From there, we started a give-and-take relationship and eventually started dating and got married. After getting married, we were blessed with a son right away. Stubborn as Felix was, I think he poured his love into him in his own way. Thanks to that, our son, Mike, grew up healthy and is now married with a grandson, Ken, of his own. We thought our happiness would last forever, but it didn't turn out that way. Mike and I have become estranged since a few years ago. A big fight between Felix and Mike was the start of the rift. Even I, who usually stays neutral, ended up siding with Felix, so I haven't been able to meet my son for years. Because of that, I haven't been able to see Ken for a long time either. It's heartbreaking not to see my first grandchild, whom I adored, but it seems there's nothing I can do. All this was because of Mike's marriage. Mike married a woman he had been dating since his student days, named Julie. Julie lived nearby, and our families were close, so Felix and I wholeheartedly blessed their marriage. I remember when Ken was born, Felix's face lit up as if he was a different person, and he lifted his grandson in his arms. I think it was around the time Ken started elementary school that Julie began to consult with me frequently. Mike comes home late. He has a lot of overtime and works on weekends too. I tell him not to overdo it, but I was touched by Julie's genuine concern for Mike. For her, with a small child, Mike's overtime and working weekends must be quite stressful. My husband was also a workaholic, and it was tough. That's why I could understand Julie's feelings all too well. I contacted Mike several times myself. I was just as worried about him. If he overworks, his health could suffer, and if the company is that bad, he should consider reporting it to the appropriate authorities. That's what I advised. Before I could finish, Mike let out a dramatic sigh and shouted, "It's different from when Dad and Mom were working, don't interfere. I'm doing things my way." From his tone, I could tell that the company wasn't forcing him to do overtime or work on weekends. What kind of twist of fate is this? He used to say he was fed up with his father, who was always busy with work when he was young. He wasn't that enthusiastic about work. It seemed more like he saw it as a means to make money and live. Julie must have known that too, which is probably why she consulted with me. My concern turned into suspicion from that day. Sure enough, the unease I felt grew over time. Soon after, I received news.
Julie passed away?
Tears-filled calls from Julie's parents reached me. Julie had been hit by a truck while wandering on a highway. She was walking in a place that wasn't a sidewalk at midnight, so it seems the truck driver didn't notice her. Julie was serious and calm, so crossing a highway recklessly wasn't something she'd do. At least, the Julie I knew wasn't that kind of person. I heard later that she had often seemed distracted before the accident. Occasionally, her parents received calls from Julie that sounded like screams of despair. Hearing about it made my blood run cold. Apparently, Mike was having an affair. Julie knew the other woman was named Miranda, a secretary at Mike's workplace. Why she was in such a dangerous place, leading to the accident, is unclear. However, Julie's parents said she must have been shocked by Mike's affair and it probably led to her nervous breakdown. I think I was in shock for a while after the phone call ended. When I received a message from Felix saying he was on his way to the hospital, I finally snapped back to reality. By the time I arrived, Felix, who had left work early, was already at the hospital. Only Julie's parents and Ken, being hugged by them, were there. Of course, the first to be contacted about the accident was supposed to be her husband, Mike, but they couldn't get through to him. And then it reached Julie's parents, and finally, at the very last moment, they got through to Mike. Even though Mike's workplace is much closer to the hospital than our house, he was the last to arrive. Moreover, there seemed to be no rush or urgency in his actions.
What the hell are you doing?
Hearing about Mike's behavior and the affair, Felix angrily confronted his son upon arrival. I had never seen such intense anger before. Yet, Ken was defiant.
I did have an affair. But Julie's death was an accident, right? It's not my fault. And the affair was not my fault, it was Julie's fault.
He said the root cause was that Julie stopped paying attention to him after Ken was born. Once a child is born, parenting should come first. But for Mike, who had always been the priority in the family as an only child, he couldn't accept that someone else was getting prioritized. Even if it was his own son. That's why Mike couldn't prioritize his son in his life, leading Ken to not be very attached to him. It was a vicious cycle that made him feel like he didn't belong at home. He shouted in front of the late Julie's parents that her nervous breakdown was her own fault. Those irresponsible words made Julie's parents break down in tears, and Felix was a step away from laying hands on Mike. all I could do was stop them and try to comfort Ken, who started crying even harder at the sight of the adult's behavior. At that moment, I could see the situation with my son and felt a wave of helplessness, almost bringing me to tears. This created a definitive rift between us and Mike. Ken appealed for either Jolie's parents or us to take him in, but Mike wouldn't budge. Though Mike confessed to the affair at the hospital, there was no further evidence, and the confession wasn't recorded, so his affair was never proven. I was unbearably worried about Mike's selfish behavior. So, hoping to be of some help, I discreetly passed Ken a piece of paper with a map to our house and our contact information. The walk from their house to ours was a bit far, but it was better than nothing. If nothing else, it was fine. That was how we parted ways. Years later, I heard through the grapevine that Mike had remarried a woman named Miranda. I heard Miranda was about 10 years younger than Mike. There were rumors that she knew Mike was married when they started dating. I was worried about Ken's situation. I visited Mike's house a few times alone, but it was always dark inside, and no one ever answered the doorbell. After several attempts, I had to give up, fearing I might be reported as a suspicious person. It's been years since I last saw Ken. Despite these old memories frequently coming to mind, life goes on. Even now, I think of Ken as I sip my hot chocolate. He used to enjoy the hot chocolate I made for him. I wonder how he's grown, how his life and family relationships are. All I can do is worry. While bringing my mug to my lips, I look outside. Today, a cold wave has hit our region, and the view from the window is uniformly white. The surroundings are already enveloped in night, and it's extremely cold. Tomorrow morning, we'll definitely need to shovel snow.
Honey, it looks like we're gonna need to shovel snow tomorrow morning.
I was about to discuss tomorrow morning's snow shoveling with Felix, who was watching TV. Then the doorbell rang. Felix and I looked at each other. We had no idea who would visit our house on such a snowy night. With a bit of fear, I opened the sliding door to the entrance, and there stood a high school-aged boy, carrying a small child on his back. I couldn't help but stare at their unusual appearance. The boy was in a slightly wrinkled white shirt with just the top of a jacket and worn sweatpants. The small child was wearing a shirt with a thin hoodie and shorts. Both of them had red limbs, and there was a light dusting of snow on their heads and shoulders. And in the pure white yard, extending to the road beyond, were long footprints. It seemed they had walked to our house in this attire. As I thought this and suddenly looked at the boy's face, I gasped.
Is that you? Ken?
I hadn't seen Ken since he was in elementary school, but I was certain. The corners of his eyes drooped like Jolie's, and his nose was just like Mike's. Ken should be a freshman in high school this year, so the age fits. However, I didn't recognize the child the Ken-like figure was carrying.
Grandma, it's been a while.
Indeed, the high school-aged boy was Ken. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't know what to say, torn between the pain of seeing him and the joy of our reunion. Ken, now fully grown, was not one to show his emotions, in contrast to me.
Please, can you let us stay tonight?
I don't know what happened, but there must be a reason they're out in such light clothing on a snowy day, in such a place. They must have come all this way relying only on the address note I gave Ken when he was a child. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to walk this distance in the snow, carrying a child. I was about to nod as if to say of course when.
Don't be ridiculous. I can't take care of that kid.
Stomping into the entrance with loud footsteps was Felix, who was supposed to be watching TV in the back of the house. Apparently, he had been listening to our conversation. Seeing Felix get angry for the first time in a while, I froze too. If even I, who have been with him so long, flinched, the high schooler must have been terrified. I looked worriedly at Ken and the child. But Ken, unfazed by Felix's demeanor, muttered softly, looking down.
Yeah, I figured as much,
he said, with a wry smile. It was a hollow smile that twisted only his mouth. As if this was exactly what he had expected, I felt anger towards Felix for making his grandson show such an expression. No matter how stubborn or unforgiving he is, what kind of attitude is that towards his own grandson, who he used to adore and is innocent of any wrongdoing? Just as I was about to speak up, the child on his back said, "I'm cold." Shivering even more. His limbs were redder and blacker than before, and his lips were turning bluer. Ken's legs were also shaking, seemingly unable to carry the child any longer. Felix glared sternly at the child on his back.
"We need to go to the hospital first. If you won't go, I'll drive." "Yeah."
Then Felix, suddenly wide-eyed, silently grabbed the car keys and quickly headed to the garage. Though I thought it was hard to understand, Felix was actually worried about Ken and the child.
"Don't be ridiculous. I can't take care of that kid." As usual, he's short on words.
The child was in such a state of exhaustion that he couldn't be taken care of at home. Right, that's the kind of person my husband is. I hadn't noticed it through my tears, but I could see the urgency in Felix's behavior. Following Felix's words, I urged Ken to the garage.
"You've done well to get here. We're going to the hospital, so you can relax now. I'll carry the child for you." "No, it's okay."
Ken showed a surprised face, then a look of wonder and confusion. In the meantime, he readjusted the child on his back and started walking towards the garage as prompted. It seems Ken has grown into a very responsible character. Always worried about the child, putting himself last. Even though he himself was shivering terribly from frostbite. Reassuring him was my role inside the car. Afterward, we found a hospital that was open at night, and Ken and the small child were immediately seen by a doctor. The doctor told us they were suffering from frostbite and malnutrition. Fortunately, because we brought them to the hospital right away, their lives were not in danger. I breathed a sigh of relief. While Ken and the child were being treated in the warm hospital, Felix wasn't his usual self. He asked the doctor in detail about their condition, held their hands so they wouldn't be afraid, and visibly worried. Where had his usual gruff exterior gone? While glancing at his face, I waited for Ken and the child to recover. A few hours later, after receiving 4 drips, Ken and the child were able to join us on the journey home before dawn. In the car on the way back, I asked Ken about the small child he had been carrying. When filling out the forms at the hospital, Ken had written the child's name as Eric. He was 5 years old. As expected, Ken's answer confirmed my suspicions. Eric is his half-brother. Which means, to Felix and me, he's another grandchild. Nervously, I asked about how they had been living up to now. Their thin clothing in winter told the whole story, but I had to ask. As expected, Ken said they were treated coldly by Miranda, the new wife, because Eric was the child of the previous wife. They were constantly verbally abused and discriminated against in terms of meals and other aspects of life. They didn't even buy clothes, and the school uniform Ken was wearing was the warmest clothing he had. And Mike, who should have been the real father, showed no interest in Ken. It seems Mike essentially neglected Ken, no matter what Miranda did to him. Eric, the child of Mike and Miranda, seemed to have been adored by both as a baby.
But, gradually, they stopped taking care of him, probably because it became troublesome.
Eventually, the care of Eric was pushed onto Ken. They were always the priority, incapable of putting a child first. Fortunately, Ken adored his much younger brother Eric. He must have been taking care of Eric since he was in middle school. Just thinking about how he had to give up his own adolescence desires to care for Eric made me feel sad. It was evident from how Eric clung to him that Ken had been taking care of him diligently, even though he was inexperienced. Due to being in a car driven by someone unfamiliar, Eric was tense and didn't speak a word. He wouldn't leave Ken's side and hugged his brother from the side, a clear proof of their bond. Finally, I asked why they had come to our house, difficult to reach by foot, especially in the dead of winter. Ken was initially reluctant to speak. Yet, as my concern reached him, he gradually began to share bits and pieces of their situation. Shockingly, Mike and Miranda had left the 2 children behind to go on a trip far away. Leaving hardly any food or money at home, their departure quickly resulted in a shortage of provisions. The fact it was the winter break probably compounded their difficulties. There was simply nothing to eat, and if things continue as they were, Ken himself and Eric would starve. And school closed, Ken, unable to impose on friends, found himself without anyone to turn to. Out of sheer desperation, he decided to make the journey to our house, Ken tearfully explained.
Why didn't you contact us sooner?
Felix shouted at Ken with a stern voice while driving. The guilt of not reaching out to his grandson sooner and allowing his son's reckless behavior. It combined with a sense of helplessness for not being relied upon, was apparent to me. However, understanding this required being familiar with Felix for a long time.
There's no need to talk like that. Ken, Eric. I'm so glad you relied on us in the end.
To Ken and Eric, who had little interaction with him, their grandfather might only seem frightening. Concerned they might be scared, I reassured them, but there was no fear in their faces. Perhaps they could sense Felix's deep worry for Ken and Eric back at the hospital.
I've thought about contacting you many times, but I was worried about what my mom had said. I just couldn't find the courage to do it.
Ken started explaining, looking guilty, why he hadn't been able to rely on us until now. After Mike remarried, Miranda frequently yelled at him, saying,
"You are not loved by your grandparents. Kids like you are a nuisance everywhere, so you better not think about relying on them." At first, I thought it was a lie. The grandparents in my memories were always kind.
But, being told repeatedly, he came to believe it was the truth.
I had memories of being adored when I was younger, and I couldn't believe that grandparents who had been so good to me would hate me. Now, I can think that way.
Yet, until recently, he murmured that he somehow believed he was not loved. It seems Miranda had manipulated him not to seek help from me or Felix.
That's why you laughed when Grandpa yelled, right?
Ken nodded. When Felix yelled at the entrance, Ken's smirk was because he felt empty, as what his stepmother Miranda had said seemed to come true. Hearing this, Felix looked even more remorseful, his eyebrows lowered.
But both Grandma and Grandpa protected us.
Finally feeling safe, Ken said and cried. Perhaps triggered by his brother's tears or the tension finally breaking, Eric also started crying. After arriving at our house, they immediately went to sleep in the futons we prepared. "It's warm," Eric said, nuzzling into the futon, and Ken hugged him, both falling asleep like mud. Feeling both tender and pained, tears rolled down my cheeks. From their behavior, it was clear they rarely had the chance to sleep comfortably and securely. Felix and I wanted to keep watching Ken and Eric's sleeping faces forever, but that wasn't possible. We had a lot of tasks ahead of us. As the day grew brighter, Felix took the car out again. He went to file a police report against Mike and Miranda, armed with the medical reports from the hospital. We prepared for their return in the coming weeks. When Mike and Miranda returned from their trip and arrived home, they were met by the police waiting for them. Initially, Mike accused me and Felix of kidnapping by taking his grandchildren. Even when presented with evidence, he continued to claim so. Feeling responsible for how terribly selfish our son had turned out, both Felix and I felt a deep sense of guilt. The face of Mike, which I hadn't seen in a long time, looked even harsher than the last time we parted ways in court. I wondered how things had gotten to this point. Had we, as a couple, made mistakes in raising him? Or, as Mike grew up, was there some significant turning point? It might be too late to ponder these things now, but seeing my son continue to hurl terrible words in court made me realize we had reached a point of no return. Now, all we could think about was protecting Ken and Eric, who had suffered so much. Felix and I decided to fully commit to being there for our grandsons. Eventually, the two were arrested for child neglect. The diagnoses of malnutrition and others were the decisive evidence. The statements from me, Felix, and the boys must have supported that decision. Suddenly, Ken and Eric were left all alone. With their parents arrested, they seemed to wish to come to our house, having nowhere else to go. However, I thought we, who had raised a son who could neglect his children, might not be qualified to raise our grandsons. So, we consulted with Jolie's parents. They were relieved about their grandson's safety and also worried about Eric, who should have been a stranger to them. They also wished they could take both in if possible. However, they sadly noted that it would be difficult to take in Eric since there was no blood relation. They said it would be cruel to separate the brothers. That's why they thought our home, where the brothers could stay together, was the best. And they promised to support us moving forward. How kind they were to offer such words to the parents of Mike, who had treated Jolie so terribly. Lately, my tear ducts have become weak and I easily tear up. Due to these circumstances, we ended up taking in Ken and Eric. When I took Ken and Eric's hands and said, "From now on, you'll live with us," they showed us smiles. Still, they were as quiet as borrowed cats when they first moved in. But soon, we were able to open up to each other. Ken has been very helpful around the house. This year, we've had a lot of snow, but he's always willing to help with shoveling. Young Eric tries to follow suit, picking up a shovel and heading outside. It seems Eric is at the age where he wants to mimic everything his brother does. While watching the two boys, Felix was teaching them the tricks of shoveling snow, all the while grumbling. It seems he's quite pleased to be relied upon by his adorable grandsons. "Can't you guys even do this much? Seriously, you're hopeless." With a feigned stern face, Felix always has a little scold for them. However, Ken and Eric seem to realize it's just his way of hiding his embarrassment, and they just smile and let it roll off their backs. "We'll be better than Grandpa soon, right, Ken?" "Yeah, maybe we'll surpass him by tomorrow." Despite his gruff nature, Ken and Eric are growing up to be Grandpa's kids, including all of that. I'm watching their endearing interactions while cooking today's meal.
Everyone! Dinner's ready, let's take a break!
I call out loudly, and the three of them start walking towards me, laughing together. What a blissful day-to-day life. Winter is nearly over, and the season for buds to sprout is coming. Among the four of us, warm times are passing by.